it is. We're gonna tell you what we use it for and how special it is. It's a place to pass bills and laws and more. Flags are rolling in the wind. The governor is walking in. Welcome to the capital of Michigan. 1879's when it was built. There's a glass floor and a dome for viewing stars. Being in this building's such a thrill. Maybe someday I can work here and help to pass a bill. We're gonna tell you how old it is. We're gonna tell you what we use it for and how special it is. It's a place to pass bills and laws and more. Flags are molding in the wind. The governor is walking in. Welcome to the capital of Michigan. That's right. Welcome to the capital of Michigan. Welcome to the capital of Michigan.
My buddy wrote that. He wrote that.
With third graders.
Show 11 o'clock. Hopefully that's what you all have also. What a pleasure it is to be here with you all on this beautiful Michigan, I think spring or early summer day. I'm just so honored that you would all take time out of your busy schedules and lives to be a part of this ceremony this morning. I'm Matt Van Acker. I have the honor of serving as the director of the State Capitol Tour Education and Information Service. And in my role as a historian here at the Capitol for the past 30 years, I've also had the distinct pleasure of serving as a task force member, co-director, director, and curator for an amazing project called Save the Flags. The goal of our project is to properly care for a truly incredible collection of 240 battle flags that were carried by our proud Michigan volunteers in the American Civil War, the Spanish-American War, and World War I. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should gather together here today on Flag Day of all days to pay honor to the sanctity of the flag and to pay tribute to the Michigan soldiers, many of them brother Masons, who fought and died beneath them. The flags were originally held here within the walls of our beautiful Capitol and spent much of their lives in the rotunda cases where I first remember seeing them as a four-year-old child on my first visit to the state capitol. This building was constructed in large part in 1879 to serve as a memorial to the sacrifices Michigan made during the recently ended Civil War, and also as a fitting memorial to that sacrifice, as evidenced here on the grounds by some of the statues and monuments. The Loomis cannons, which are replicas of guns that were used by the famed Loomis Battery during the Civil War, which formed out of Coldwater, Michigan. The statue of Austin Blair in front of me and behind you folks, who was our wartime governor. The memorial and monument to the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters Regiment, which graces the corner of the grounds. The memorial to the 1st Michigan Engineers and Mechanics Regiment, which graces the opposite corner of the Capitol grounds. And also a stone monument to the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans that formed after the Civil War. 30 years ago, when our Capitol was restored, the reluctant decision was made to remove the original battle flags from their cases in the rotunda. We partnered with the State Historical Museum, who's providing a wonderful archival storage space for those flags, where we can better care for them, preserve, and research them. Now, for the first time ever since this project started 30 years ago, we are also conducting on-site conservation here at the state capitol in our newly constructed Heritage Hall, which you'll all get a chance to visit after our ceremony. Two of our trained staff, one of whom is graciously filming for us today, my friend Cambray Sampson and my friend May Euler, have undergone conservation training and are now actually conducting conservation of our battle flags here on site in their original home at the state capitol. We are here this morning to honor the Fellowship Lodge, number 236 of Flint, Michigan, and collectively the Masons of Michigan. Their donation of $2,000 in honor of the 6th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry Regiment will assist us in conserving the flags that these proud men of the old peninsular state carried into combat. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Miss Lily Giese, past Grand Bethel Honored Queen, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lily. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Miss Jacqueline Hoyle, who will honor us with her rendition of Michigan, My Michigan.
Home of my heart, I sing of thee, Michigan, my Michigan. Thy lake-bound shores I long to see, Michigan, my Michigan. From Saginaw's tall whispering pines to Lake Superior's farthest mines, fair in the light of memory shines, Michigan, my Michigan. Thou gave thy sons without a sigh, Michigan, my Michigan, and sent thy bravest forth to die, Michigan, my Michigan. Beneath the hostile southern sky, they bore thy banner proud and high, ready to fight, but never to fly, Michigan, my Michigan. From Yorktown on to Richmond's wall, Michigan, my Michigan. They bravely fight, as bravely fall, Michigan, my Michigan. Their strong arms crumble in the dust, and their bright swords all have gathered rust. Their memory is our sacred trust, Michigan, my Michigan. And when the happy time shall come, Michigan, my Michigan, that brings thy war-worn heroes home, Michigan, my Michigan, what welcome from their own proud shores, what honors at their feet will pour, what tears for those who'll come no more, Michigan, my Michigan. A grateful country claims them now, Michigan, my Michigan. and deathless laurel binds each brow. Michigan, my Michigan, and history the tale will tell of how they fought and how they fell for that dear land they loved so well. Michigan, my Michigan.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I should have provided Kleenex for everyone, I think. The lyrics to that song are absolutely incredible. And your rendition was amazing. Thank you so much. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Austin L. Conquest, Worshipful Master, Fellowship Lodge number 236, Flint, Michigan.
I have no idea how I'm going to follow Jacqueline. That was transcendent. Thank you so much. Greetings, brethren, friends, and distinguished guests. My name is Austin Conquest. I am the Worshipful Master of Fellowship Lodge number 236, Free and Accepted Masons of Michigan. I'd like to thank all of you for being here with us today, but owe a special thanks to our newly installed Grand Master, Most Worshipful Brother Larry Judson, for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us. The Grand Master has been a supporter and promoter of this event every year and has our deepest gratitude. I'd also like to thank the other Grand Lodge officers and representatives for being with us today. This is Fellowship Lodge's third annual Save the Flags event, held in celebration of Michigan Masonry and its contributions to our state's history and to the immortal cause of the Union Army, for which many thousands of Michigan Masons fought and died. To give you a better understanding of Fellowship Lodge and its place in Michigan Masonry, I'd like to take a few minutes to provide the story of our historic lodge. On November 6, 1918, brothers Charles Reed, Hugh Miller, and Dan Neal organized a meeting of 28 Masons who met in the administrative office of the Buick Motor Division to discuss the possibility of forming a new Masonic lodge in the city of Flint. Committees were formed to spread local interest, and a few weeks later, another meeting was held at Buick, where 40 brothers met to decide on the new lodge's name, as well as elect officers to act under dispensation, should it be granted. As a result, Brother K.D.B. Durham was elected to serve as our first Worshipful Master. Historians know him as a pioneering administrator at Buick and the managing director of the Buick Motor Division. The division's history was exciting from the beginning. Buick recovered from near bankruptcy in 1904 to become the #1 producer of automobiles in 1908, surpassing the combined production of both Ford and Cadillac, its closest competitors. Buick was the financial pillar on which General Motors, today the world's largest automaker, was created. Additionally, Brother Howard Cliff was elected Senior Warden, and Brother Forrest Boswell was elected Junior Warden. In regards to a name, after voting on a lengthy list including Victory Lodge, Sincerity Lodge, Harmony Lodge, Liberty Lodge, and Mystic Tie Lodge, it was Fellowship Lodge that won the day, and after a motion by Brother Raymond L. Kurtz, it was adopted by unanimous vote. On January 31st, 1919, Grandmaster Hugh McPherson wrote to Worshipful Brother Durham to inform him that he had that day signed the dispensation to work for the newly formed lodge. The latter lost no time in organizing the craft, and on February 7th, business was officially conducted by Fellowship Lodge, including 34 petitions to be read the first night alone. By the time its charter was granted on May 28th of that year, Fellowship Lodge had added 87 new members. On June 13th, the lodge met to read the new charter into the minutes and elect the first officers under its authority, including Worshipful Master Tom Rogers, Senior Warden Forrest Boswell, and Junior Warden Hugh Miller. Then, on July 7th, Grandmaster Charles B. Eddy came to Flint to constitute the new lodge and install the officers. From then on, Fellowship Lodge became a Flint institution and has added many noteworthy Masons to its ranks, including 3 mayors of the city, Howard Clifford, Edward J. Vile, and Harry Cull. Brother William Findlater was a city manager, and brothers William Doran and John Baker both served as judges in those early days. There have also been many brothers, as might be expected, who have distinguished themselves in the automotive industry and are recognized internationally as pioneers thereof, including Walter Chrysler, who went on to form the Chrysler Corporation, Harry Bassett, K.D. Durham, K.T. Keller, and R.F. Thalner, to name a few. In 2017, Fellowship Lodge merged with Davison Lodge number 236, resulting in our present-day Fellowship Lodge number 236. Noteworthy among Davison Lodge's historical members was George Thomas, who at 8 years old was a survivor of the Titanic disaster, along with his mother Anna and sister Mary. His son, George L. Thomas, went on to become a past master of the lodge, as well as the first mayor of the city of Burton. Among the current members of Fellowship, by way of Davison, is Worshipful Brother David Martin, state representative for Michigan's 68th District. More recently, in 2021, Fellowship Lodge left its historic home at the Flint Masonic Temple and has found a new home at the Swartz Creek Masonic Temple, which it shares in harmony with its brother lodges, Swartz Creek Lodge number 458 and Morning Star Lodge number 556. Fellowship Lodge has a long and storied history, and though the future, as always, remains to be seen, we have faith that our current chapter in this history will be but one of many more to come. I now have the pleasure of introducing Fellowship Lodge's Flags Committee Chairman, Worshipful Brother David Norris.
I'm loving this day. We had our concerns. My brothers and our guests today, there are a number of reasons that Fellowship Lodge in Flint supports the work of Save the Flags. 240 battle flags carried by Michigan soldiers in the Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I, rest in these archives, far from the clash and thunder of the battles that killed many of the men who were the flag bearers. And then they killed the next man who picked that banner up. And then he was shot. And then the next man picked that banner up. The archives hold these sacred gunshot and grape-torn flags, many containing the blood and brain of those who carried them and fell with them. When you leave our gathering today, I hope you leave with a sense of pride, knowing that of the 90,000 troops raised by then Governor Austin Blair, whose statue graces the front of our Capitol, just behind you, many of those men that went off to war were Master Masons. Thousands were masters who took up these great banners of war. Many masters of their lodge and past masters and brothers helped to form the units being raised since the urgent call from President Lincoln. Many lodges closed that great light of Masonry, snuffed the lesser lights, temporarily laid down the working tools of Masonry, and went off to experience the most dreadful war ever fought on this continent. The first flag that Fellowship Lodge adopted was of Flint's 10th Michigan Volunteer Infantry. It's flying here today. This replica, that's certainly not the flag. The flag is quite torn. Through our adoption and study, we knew that Colonel Charles Lum of the 10th Michigan was a Master Mason, as well as a hero of 1st Manassas. As a captain in the 1st Michigan Infantry, he was severely wounded during the disorganized retreat of the Federal Army fleeing back into Washington. Of the 1st Michigan that day, President Lincoln said, "Thank God for Michigan." Flint was a small town. It wasn't even connected to the railroad back then. And Governor Blair had ruled that only towns and cities that had a railhead could qualify to raise an infantry. Then how did the 10th Michigan Infantry get raised in Flint that didn't have a railhead? Well, it happened to be a man called Edward Thompson. Later they called him Colonel Thompson. And he just happened to be chairman of Governor Blair's military board. He was also a Master Mason who decided that they wanted an infantry in Flint. And so he worked behind the scenes, and sure enough, they raised a great army in Flint with the permission of Governor Blair. And when the 10th Michigan Infantry marched off to war, that next spring, they were marched out by wagon over muddy roads to the village of Holly, the closest railhead, where a master mason, Colonel Charles Lum, led them into battle. Last year, Fellowship Lodge adopted the battle flag of the 13th Michigan Volunteer Infantry. That truly was a Masonic band of brothers who marched off to war from Otsego Lodge number 78. We documented during our adoption program that Captain Willard Eaton, a past master of that lodge, and many of his members joined the 13th Michigan. Eaton would go on to ultimately be promoted to colonel of the 13th Michigan. Colonel Eaton was severely wounded and died on the battlefield at Bentonville in North Carolina. His brothers and friends buried him on that battlefield. One of them took a marker made of a wooden portion of a gun carriage and scratched his name on it so they might place it at the grave, so they might know where the body was, if they could come and retrieve it later. How like our Grand Master Hiram Abiff. Oh Lord my God, is there no help for the widow's son? They buried their brother. They scratched the square and compasses on that makeshift marker that exists to this day. They brought him home, and he's now buried back in Michigan. And now we come to the 6th Cavalry. When I researched the membership rolls of free and accepted Masons in Michigan, the details of what I found would really take longer than I have, because I'm wrapping this up. But suffice to say that of the command officers of the 6th Cavalry alone were 2 Master Masons, a Lieutenant Colonel from Corinthian Lodge number 241, and a Major from Evergreen Lodge number 9 in St. Clair. Beyond that, there was a captain in Company A, a captain in Company B, a first lieutenant from Company C, a captain from Company F, a captain from Company G, and a captain from Company H, all Master Masons. One of them, Lieutenant Colonel Russell Alger, went on to become governor of the state of Michigan from 1885 to 1887. Brothers, the only thing that remains of the service of these valiant Master Masons are the battle flags and banners now resting under the care of Save the Flags. These are the sacred altar cloths of Michigan Freemasonry brought home from war. We appreciate all of you who came today as we honor the Masonic memory of our brothers of the 6th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Larry L. Judson, Most Worshipful Grand Master, Michigan F&AM.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here today. Traveling with me so that I don't have to buy any bling is my wife, Mary. I want to make sure and introduce her. Mary, this way. Also, I'm honored today that we have Senator Daley back here with us. Senator Daley, who is from Lum. And my friend and representative, David Martin, is also a part today and always will be a part of the things we do. Also traveling with me, I have our Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, Eugene Abatico. Right Worshipful Grand Lecturer Thomas Braun, the Worshipful Junior Grand Deacon Terry Trout. And I'm very proud to have two of my stewards with me today, Mark Gagne and Butch Redinger. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. What more honor can we have than to be here on the restoration of these flags? It was pointed out that we have a statue of a sharpshooter over here. My relative, one of them from Argentine, Michigan, was a sharpshooter. There is a reason that the military and our police departments always honor Masons, and it is because of our obligation. Our obligation says that if we see a brother who needs help, if there's a better chance of saving his life than losing our own, then we will do that. And that was evidenced many times on Civil War battlefields. At the conclusion of this battle, when these guys were shooting at each other, if a sign, token, or word was given that out on that battlefield lay a Mason in need of help, even though they had fought all day long and may have been tired to the bone, they would go see to that brother Mason and see how they could help them. That's how our obligation and what it means to us is so important. It is my honor to be not only Grand Master of Michigan Masons, but an honorary member of Fellowship Lodge number 236. And I cannot tell you how proud I am of the job that they are doing, even though they've made a very difficult move. But when they made the move, they did say, when we move, we need to have a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, then you will fail and your group will falter. I am very proud that Fellowship 236 is here today, taking up this purpose and continuing it. And I have been here every year since this started. I'm very, very pleased with my lodge, Fellowship 236, and the job that they are doing. I want to thank you all for the opportunity. We ready, Mary? She usually will signal me when it's time. So I do want to thank everyone who is here today, and I do want to very humbly say thank you, Fellowship 236, but even more humbly say thank you to those soldiers in the 6th Regiment that carried this flag with honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Honored guests, Michigan State legislators, including Representative Martin, Representative Begole, who was not introduced earlier, and Senator Daley. Capitol staff, Save the Flag supporters, proud Michigan Masons, including Larry, Dwayne, and Bruce Whitman, who are members of Fellowship Lodge number 236, and the proud descendants of Henry Fisher, who fought with the 6th Michigan Cavalry Regiment, was wounded near Cold Harbor, Virginia in June of 1864. The Whitmans are the descendants also of two other Michigan Civil War veterans, Alexander Roberts, who saw service with the 23rd Infantry, and Lewis Whitman Jr., who fought with the 13th Michigan Infantry. It is a pleasure to have these true sons of Michigan Union veterans here with us this morning. To a soldier, a good soldier, The colors of his regiment are a priceless treasure. For their honor, he will submit willingly to any sacrifice, and he considers a stain cast upon them as a stigma upon his own character. In the hour of peril, he will rally round them, heedless of the din of battle, and he considers his life to be of no value in their defense. Frederick Curtenius, Colonel, 6th Michigan Infantry, Heavy Artillery Regiment, and he considers his life to be of no value in their defense. This from a time and a place when words such as these and valor were common. The battle flags inspired these men then, and they continue to inspire people today, including myself. They have become a very important part of who I am as an individual, of who I am as a proud citizen of this great state of Michigan, and an essential part of who I am as an American. I believe that those among us who have had the opportunity, as I have, to spend time with this collection will readily attest to this. These flags have a way, their way, of deeply affecting a person. To gaze upon the battle honors, lovingly inscribed, the blurred and shrunken stars, the stitches of the soldier's own desperate attempts at battlefield repairs, the shattered staffs, the frayed fringe, the still pungent odor of centuries-old spent powder, the silk, crimson-stained. To lay a finger beside a bullet hole, your hand astride the saber slash, would make a believer, a true believer, out of any doubting Thomas. Hearts of stone could not help but to be moved, melted, softened by the experience. These flags, they have become to me as dear old friends, ragged, worn, aged, tired, so very, very tired, but desirous still of the opportunity to tell their stories, desirous still in their own infirmity, as old friends often are, to have someone, to have anyone listen. But alas, sadly, these flags do not, nay, they cannot speak in audible tones, but their stories of undaunted courage and unimaginable bravery are manifested by their rent folds and in their silken fields of glory. Oh, could they but speak, what touching scenes of heroism they could give, scenes that no tongue can now tell, nor pen adequately describe. Colonel Frederick Schneider, 2nd Michigan Infantry. To the men, the flags were the colors, the literal embodiment of the regiment. The colors, the term itself evokes such deep emotion, affection, reverence. The colors, not just some rag tied to a stick, but the colors, the pride of the regiment. These colors stand today as a touchstone to history. They were the soldiers' touchstone to history. They are our collective touchstone to history. They are my touchstone to history. The colors stand today as a constant reminder of the 90,000 Michigan men who fought in that war, the 15,000 Michigan boys who did not return, boys whose bodies were laid in their blood-soaked uniforms in shallow, hastily dug graves across the battlefields of this great nation. And let us not deceive ourselves for one moment. Most of them were mere boys. Civil War historians have estimated that up to 20% of the Union Army consisted of boys under the age of 18. Boys who left their homes and hearth fires here in Michigan and fought and endured 4 long, horrific years of combat. And those who were fortunate enough to return to those home fires, God sparing their lives, came back changed men. Men who I have absolutely no doubt spent many a sleepless night, perpetually consumed and burdened by the guilt of the blood they had been forced to spill, burdened by the guilt of Cain for having slain his own brother, by the guilt of their mere but yet their most audacious act of survival, while so many of the comrades of their youth perished round and about them in the struggle. These were men, however, who were also determined that what they had seen and what they had done should actually mean something, that it should not be frittered away and wasted, that it should go towards building a state and a new free nation that was truly worthy of their service, a state and a new nation that was truly worthy of their sacrifice, a state and a new nation that by God was truly worthy of the buckets of blood that had been spilled. They were also determined that they should be remembered. And this was not in some boastful or some vainglorious attempt at immortality, but with the desire, the hope, the fervent prayer that the madness, the uselessness, the horrible, utter brutality that is all war would never, ever again be visited upon this nation, upon their progeny, their children, or their children's children. And so it is with that hope that we proceed today with this project to preserve for posterity the banners that were so important to them. By caring enough to preserve these flags that meant so much to them, we are, in a much larger way, working to preserve their memories. Does the passage of time, the minutes, the hours, the days, the weeks, the months, the years, the decades, or even the centuries diminish their hope? Does the physical distance from the great shores of Michigan to those battlefields afar diminish their fervent prayer? I argue that it does not, and it should not. Quote, "There is the flag. It is as mute as the grave, but it tells whether the oath those boys took in that open field was redeemed. Oh, the dreadful fields of battle over which it is waved. Oh, the gallant souls that have poured out their life's blood under its folds. Its pitiful tatters indicate the number, but they do not tell the names. Those names are embalmed in our memories and shall never be forgotten." I am asked regularly why I believe these flags are so important and why I have dedicated the bulk of my professional career in caring for them. The answer to me is quite simple. They are important to me and should be important to the people of the state of Michigan because they were important to the men who carried them into battle and fought and died beneath them. Do we need a better reason to preserve them? Do we need a better reason to ensure that they are taken care of and that the memory of those brave men is also preserved? These flags were so important to these men that they were willing to die following them into battle. They returned them to a grateful state of Michigan as their proudest possessions. They came to this building in Lansing when it opened in 1879, decades after the conclusion of the war, just to catch a glimpse of them in the shallow glass and metal cases where they had been entombed. In first eyewitness accounts, the gray-bearded elderly gentlemen often coming to tears at the sight of their beloved regimental flags. They were so important that some of these veterans held on to scraps of the flags for years after the war as sacred relics of their service and as a constant reminder of the comrades who had died. These flags stood for and stand for men who withstood 4 long years of combat and came back to this state changed. These flags also stand as a reminder of the men who gave their lives in their defense and the cause that they stood for. Men who died in the flower of their youth, blossoms cut from the tree before they could bloom and flourish and produce fruit, lives cut short before these boys could grow to honorable manhood, marry their childhood sweethearts, advance in age, and do something I had the honor of doing 1 year ago, walk one of my daughters down the aisle on her wedding day. If we can preserve these flags, these relics of their service, then perhaps we can also preserve a part of them. Perhaps, just perhaps, we can make their loss and sacrifice worth the price that they paid. If you would indulge me for one short moment, I'd like to share with you a few lines from a letter by a correspondent of the Lansing State Republican, written on August 20th, 1862. Company A of the 20th Michigan Infantry Regiment had just left their homes here in Lansing for their rendezvous at Camp Jackson. Many of the Company A boys were state employees who left their employ at the state capitol to enlist. Quote, the company has left the city on Saturday morning to join the 20th Regiment at Jackson. The company arrived safely in Jackson about 5:30 in the afternoon and unloaded and formed into a line on the east side of the river near the Central Depot and marched up through Main Street to the campground about a mile distant from the heart of the city, where they arrived about sundown. They were soon busily at work, putting up their tents and preparing for the night. Quote, they are the cream, and their absence from among us will be seriously felt by all. No man with a heart in his breast can look upon this fine body of young men going forth to battle to offer up their lives, their all, upon the altar of their country to crush this unholy, monstrous rebellion without having his feelings well up within him with such force as to bring tears in his eyes. May God bless them and watch over them. Let them always know and feel that they are remembered and cared for at home and that they are dear to us, for we have given of the best we have. Please, I beg of you, let us not forget them. Quote, let them know and feel that they are remembered and cared for at home and that they are dear to us, for we have indeed given of the best we have. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Representative David Martin, who will be presenting the legislative tribute and executive tribute that has been prepared to honor Lodge 236.
Okay, it doesn't say remarks under this, but he gave me a live microphone. And it is Flag Day, and we do pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. The republic is made up of citizens. Citizens in the Greek word are co-rulers, co-sovereigns. So in other words, we pledge allegiance to each other. And I'm going to be reading this as it says in the bulletin, so enjoy. In special tribute, Fellowship Lodge number 236, Free and Accepted Masons. Let it be known that it is a tremendous honor and a great privilege to pay tribute to Fellowship Lodge number 236 of Flint, Michigan, for their adoption of a flag carried by the 6th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry Regiment during the Civil War. Their donation of $2,000 will help ensure that historic battle flags carried by Michigan volunteers are appropriately preserved, researched, and displayed for future generations to learn from and to cherish. This adoption was made possible by the generosity of Fellowship Lodge 236 with additional support from the Michigan Masonic Charitable Foundation. The flag is part of the Michigan Capitol Battle Flag Collection, numbering 240 banners, including flags from the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and World War I. As part of Save the Flags, a project to preserve the state's collection of historical battle flags, groups or individuals may adopt a flag by contributing to its preservation. With this adoption, the members of Fellowship Lodge number 236 are not only contributing to the preservation of this flag, but to the preservation of the entire collection. They're also honoring fellow Masons who fought to end slavery and preserve the Union. Organized in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and mustered into federal service on October 13, 1862, the 6th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry Regiment became part of the famous Michigan Cavalry Brigade under the dashing boy general George Armstrong Custer of Monroe, Michigan. The regiment fought with distinction under Custer at Gettysburg, when on July 3, 1863, they were ordered to charge the rebel cavalry. As they formed, Custer rode up and drawing his saber shouted, "Come on, you Wolverines!" This desperate as well as brilliant charge helped turn the tide of battle at Gettysburg. By the end of the war, the 6th had lost 7 officers, 95 men killed in action, 18 men dead from wounds, and 266 dead from disease. These numbers exemplify the invaluable contribution offered by the regiment and the state of Michigan. There is a paragraph for the history of Fellowship Lodge was given to you. I would mention that combining with Davison Lodge, Davison is from the city of Davison, which is the city of flags. In special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to honor Fellowship Lodge number 236 of Flint, Michigan, for their adoption of a battle flag carried by the 6th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry Regiment during the Civil War. Fellow Masons who fought with the regiment would take great comfort in the knowledge that their service and sacrifice is remembered and that their flag and their memory is being preserved. It is signed by myself, Senator John Cherry, Senator Kevin Daly, Representative Phil Green, Representative Cynthia Neely, Representative Jasper Martis, Representative Mike Mueller, Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. We also have two other representatives in Michigan. Unfortunately, there's not enough space to get them to sign, and that would be Representative Brian Begall and Representative Matt Berline.
Could I impose on Senator Daly and Representative Begol to step up forward too to help present the tribute, if you would, please?
While Representative Begol is coming up here, I take off my hat to you, sir. I did not introduce you, even though you've spent hours sitting on my porch with us. And I do want to thank you for being here and your years of public service.
Thank you.
Someone said something about a check at some point. I'm joking. Mr. Conquest, Mr. Judson, Mr. Jeffrey Downing, Secretary, and Mr. Donald Scholig, Treasurer, if you'd like to come forward, and I think you have something for me.
I do, yes. On behalf of Fellowship Lodge number 236 of Flint, Michigan.
Oh, you're good. Oh, I was determined to lose.
On behalf of Fellowship Lodge number 236, Free and Accepted Masons of Michigan of the city of Flint, Michigan, I'd like to present to the state of Michigan this check for $2,000 for the wonderful work that you do for Save the Flags. Thank you.
I also have a photograph of the flag that's being adopted this morning. And Mr. Dwayne Whitman, if you could step forward, please, to accept the photograph on behalf of the Lodge. I mentioned earlier in my comments that Dwayne is a direct descendant of three gentlemen who fought for Michigan regiments, including Terry Fisher, who fought with this regiment, the 6th Michigan Cavalry. Dwayne, thank you so very much. As we close this ceremony, I'd like to make a personal comment, if I might. I first met Mr. David Norris, who has become a dear friend, 4 years ago, when he sent an email to me inquiring about the battle flags of the 10th Michigan Infantry Regiment, David being a descendant of a member of that regiment. Little did he know then that he would succumb to the siren call of the battle flags and be sucked into this tangled web of battle flag preservation and research. I know that David is not comfortable with personal accolades, but I think it important to draw attention to his work. David has become a good friend to me and a great friend to Save the Flags. In the years since our first interaction, he has coordinated the donation of $6,000 from the Fellowship Lodge 236 and the State of Michigan Masonic Charitable Fund. He helped inspire 2 other flag adoptions amounting to over another additional $2,000, and also inspired the donation of a historic Grand Army of the Republic post flag to our collection. Thank you, brother. At the end of the war, each man came home with the unstated question left unanswered. How does a returning soldier pick up the pieces of a life abandoned 4 years earlier, taking to his domicile the memories of horrendous sights, sounds, and actions better left deeply buried and unspoken? How does a former soldier in his newly reclaimed daily life of a citizen face the parents, wives, and children of friends buried in their blood-soaked uniforms so far away from the great shores of Michigan? We have a tremendous debt to repay to them. Let us go forth then today from this ceremony with grateful hearts for the generous support offered by these incredible Masonic brothers. Let us go forth today also newly committed to remembering the sacrifices of the Michigan Boys in Blue, and specifically today, the 6th Michigan Cavalry Regiment. Let us go forth today newly committed to caring for these priceless artifacts of their service. I would now like to introduce to you Mr. Dan Hall, an incredibly talented performer and songwriter. Dan will be conducting, by the way, a concert in Heritage Hall at the conclusion of our ceremony. You are all also very welcome to join us for a box lunch that will be provided in the South Stateroom. A little bit of a logistical matter to get to that Heritage Hall. You'll be coming through our entry under the steps on the left or right, going to the very far end of that same hall, going through some double doors and then some stairs or elevators. They'll take you down to our brand new Welcome Center. Mr. Hall.
Will you stand among the windswept fields and look beyond the veil to see the general standing in that cold December gale? When others were crestfallen, his strong spirit would not break. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Our nation's darkest hours saw him sitting by the glow of 3 lesser lights and greater lights in lodges banked with snow. The wind outside screamed harshly, though their honor could not take. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Somewhere a man is standing with his hand upon that door. In darkness he is waiting like his brothers long before. And when he finally comes to light within this temple we create, oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Will you stand among the heroes from today to Valley Forge, who dearly loved the brotherhood and freedom's golden torch? And the buildings we're creating are of men and freedom's fate. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Oh, what a mighty building. Oh, what a mighty building. Oh, what a mighty building a trowel can make. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Dan. Beautiful. One last logistical note. At the end of our ceremony, participants and Brother Masons, if you could linger for a bit in front, the photographer would like a group photograph. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Philip E. Jean, past master, who will offer the benediction.
Please be in the attitude of prayer. O Lord, be with us on our homeward way, and let your spirit linger in inspiration of all of our meeting. Amen.